Oh, you want to come up here again? Okay, come on. This way, come on. Come on. Up. Yep, Bandit wants to come up again. Just wants to sit on my lap all the time. Good dog. You're a good dog, right? Yes, good boy. For those of you who aren't aware, Bandit is what they're calling a Poshy. That is a Pomeranian Shetland sheepdog, also called a Sheltie, a cross. They're trying to get the breed recognized by the American Kennel Society. Yeah, you're pretty good, eh? I think he was rejected as a stud because the hair on his back kind of goes crissy-crossy quite a lot. I guess what some people call a cowlick. He's got like 4 of them down his back. Don't you, buddy? Yeah, okay. Today, we want to look at this knife, the Vagrant by Kubey. It's been a few days since I did my last video. It's been a crazy week. I had a tooth give me problems. They found a crack in it. They were going to do a crown. And while I was waiting for that to be processed, you know, it kept getting worse and worse and worse. Went in for the work to do the crown on my molar. Oh, there's Bandit. He just jumped over on the bed. And it turned out I've got an infection, needed emergency root canals, blah, blah, blah. Got an yeah, it said infection. So, yeah, it's a mess in there, but it's getting better. So, hey, progress is good progress, right? And this knife is just barely a sub 3-inch knife. I think this might be the best EDC kind of sub 3-inch knife that I've had in quite a long while. AUS 10 steel by Kubey. It's called the Vagrant. I just noticed that the other G10 version in tan has a different blade shape. Take a close look. And there's 2 frame lock versions of the same knife. We've got titanium over AUS 10. That's the KB284A and the 284B. One's blue, one's regular gray titanium. And then they've got a high-end version, titanium over S30V. But that's like $200 American. The titanium AUS 10 one is all sold out. And this one is cheapest at Amazon. $50.99 US on Amazon. I've got the links down below. The other versions are at KubeyKnife.com and KubeyGlobal.com. KubeyGlobal.com is the higher end Kubey stuff, and KubeyKnife.com is the more budget Kubey stuff, just in case you're wondering. But always check Amazon first, and maybe AliExpress and stuff. I'll have all kinds of links down below. Some of them will be referral links. If you use those, it helps the channel out, and all the help I can get is good. I had this sent to me by one of the Kubey reps. I don't know why I'm trying to talk so fast, but I am. Guess I really want to get this video out there. So let's get to the tabletop. Oh, by the way, Max Tkachuk is the designer of this. If you haven't been on his Instagram channel yet, check it out. He's got a lot of cool designs. So now let's get to the tabletop and take a good close look at this knife. There you go. It's a drop point blade. Some people might want to call it a Wharncliffe. It's not a puncturing style knife, but it's good for just about anything else that you want to do as an urban EDC especially. We've got a titanium pocket clip right there. Well made. Works perfectly the way it's designed. Pretty deep carry. And it looks good. We've got a titanium pivot collar as well. High quality flush screws, which I really, really like to see. And these just look perfect. They're just flush, just like they should be. The back spacer turns into a lanyard nub at the back there. Placement is spot on what I like. And I like having them small like that so the paracord doesn't bunch out. The blade's got very good jimping on the spine right there and adds a lot of extra grip, and it's not hot, so I like that. We've got a nice wedge across the spine of the blade. That looks good. A saber grind, which is a flat grind that doesn't come all the way to the spine. We've got a hole there and fairly well sharpened blade. Sharpness choil is perfect. It's not a forward choil at all, but it's a good, comfortable knife. Grip in reverse. a reverse pull grip. They're all reasonably good. And my hands are just barely between large and extra large in North American sizes. And this knife is comfortable in my hand. So just about anybody who wants a knife is going to find this knife fairly comfortable, unless you're very well into the extra large range. Then it might feel a little bit small. It is a bit chunky, which I like. This might be one of the most robust sub 3-inch knives that I've had in quite a while as well. There's jimping on the liner lock release. The liner lock, yeah, it might be a tiny bit later than I like on a brand new knife, but it's solid, and there is still a fair bit of room for it to wear over. No blade play, side to side, up and down. And in places where there's two-hand opening laws, I don't know. Maybe this will qualify, because how do you open it? Well, you open it like this. Unless you want to do it like this. Well, that did get there. It's a fun little knife. I'm looking at my monitor, and so that makes it a little bit tough sometimes to open the knife. Pocket clip is only right hand. There's no left hand option for it. There is a little bit of the G10 milled away for that to sit in there, so the one screw holds it just fine. These are T6 screws, but they're well made, good tolerances. The pivot collar is a T8. And, it's quite nice. I don't like having flippers all the time. I like flippers, but sometimes I just want something different. And this thing's different on a few levels. AUS 10, while it's becoming more common, it's not a super common steel. And sub 3-inch done well, that doesn't happen every day. Well, maybe it does. Maybe there's 365 of them made a year, but I don't know. Different models. But I'm just trying to say that this is a good knife at the sub 3-inch size. Let's compare it to the Ontario Rat 1. And there you go. You put that on the screen. It's definitely a smaller knife. The handle thickness, almost the same. The blade thickness, almost the same. It's just you got a bit less grip area. But you've got, about 3/8 less of a cutting edge. And that's all you've got, less than a nice big Ontario Rat 1. So that's why I'm saying this is a good knife if you live in a place where it's sub 3 inches. Even if you only want, a good knife that is not too scary, because it doesn't look stabby. It's a decent knife. Kubey, of course, puts their name right here on the bevel. I would have preferred they made it a bit smaller and put it up there on the flat by the jimping. And on this side, you've got the Max to Chuck Designers logo, and there it says AUS 10, and that's all the writing on the knife. Let's, before we take this apart or anything, let's do the sizes and stuff next. This will be on the screen while I talk about the dimension sizes and stuff. The weight of this knife, 117 grams, 4.15 ounces. Not bad. I wouldn't mind it a bit lighter, but these liners are pretty thick, and they're skeletonizing on this one liner, but not on the working side. The sharpness from the factory, pretty close to the middle of the blade. I measured it, 135 bests. That's about average from what I get from most budget knives these days. The cutting edge length and the blade length, the tip to the closest spot on the handle here, are almost exactly the same. I'm going to say 75.9 millimeters, which is 2.988 inches. There you go. It's a sub 3-inch, just barely. The thickness of the blade, 3.06 millimeters. That's 0.12 of an inch. 0.125 is an eighth, so it's very close to an eighth of an inch. The blade depth, its largest right there. 27.9 millimeters, 1.098 inches. So basically 1 1/10 inches. And the thickness behind the grind, it is 0.54 millimeters, 21 thousandths. So just a tiny bit thicker than my sort of ideal of 20 thou. But 21 thou is not much more than 20. The grind angles, very little variability, about 1 degree of variability along the length of the blade. 18.6 degrees, 23.1 degrees. So I'd probably make it 18 degrees on both sides. AUS 10 can handle that, no problem. and that would help it to cut even better than it did, but it did quite well in my testing. The handle length is 104.7 millimeters. That's 4.122 inches. The grip area, it's just a tiny bit over 9¼ centimeters, about 3.65 inches. That's why it's good enough for most hands. The thickness of the handle, not counting the pocket clip, 14.1 millimeters. That's 0.555 of an inch. So not bad there either. A tiny bit thicker than sort of, I don't know if the ideal is ½ an inch, but a lot of people like ½ an inch, just a bit thicker than that. The handle depth within the grip area, it's widest right up here, just as this transition happens. That is 23.6 millimeters, 0.929 of an inch. When the knife is closed, same spot, 33.9 millimeters, 1.335 inches. And the total length of the knife when it's open, 180.6 millimeters, 7.11 inches. So not bad at all. How much does it cost? Well, I already said a little bit in the intro. Amazon, $50.99. That's about $61.75 Canadian in equivalency. So it is at that edge between what I call budget and, a little bit above budget kind of grade knife. I tend to call budget, for the last little while, I'm saying $60 US and less is budget. And at 51, it's well within that budget range, at least for Americans. The expensive titanium one is $170, which is like 206 Canadian. So the titanium with AUS 10 is sold out, but it was $99.99, which is about $121 right now. The Canadian dollar is doing fairly well against the American dollar, so I kind of like that. So it's flickable. It's got good action because it's got good ball bearings in it. The alignment, almost perfect. And like I said, lockup's just a little bit later than I'd like. You can call it a two-hand opening. Let's take it apart and show you what the insides are like. I've not taken it apart yet. I've not have to adjust this pivot screw. It's free spinning. So I don't like that. I didn't even learn that before. So I'm turning it here and it's spinning along. So I'm going to pause the video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my vise and hold it in there and do one screwdriver on either side to take it apart. Well, to some of you, this might be another con. It did not want to come apart. These posts here are very snug, and I had to use, there we go. I put my pliers in between the liners and had to, twist it to kind of lift it up to pry them a little bit loose after I had tried to do it, this way. And so now I've got some scuff marks on the G10. Just slightly damaged it, I did. I was planning on keeping this knife in my permanent collection anyway, and as a user, and I think it's going to stay there now because, that tiny bit of damage, that just sucks. It was on there very snugly. So if you're one of those guys who likes to take his knives apart or her knives apart, maybe this isn't the good one for you unless you are super careful and only do what I did at the end. And that is put something in between the liners and do the prying kind of thing that way. Don't grab it like this and try to wiggle it to try to get it to come loose. Just in between the liners. And be very gentle. Go along the length of it back and forth as it slowly lifts apart. These liners are fairly thick. And yeah, there could have been some skeletonizing on here to help maybe bring it closer to 4 ounces, but it's just a tiny bit over. We've got ceramic ball bearings in phosphor bronze cages. Very good. Here's the inside of that titanium pocket clip. Well made. These screws are very good screws. And, while they did not have a locking pivot pin, these screws are hard to strip out because they are high quality screws. If you've got reasonable to good quality screwdrivers, I think you're going to be fine if you do want to take it apart. Heavy stop pin right there. And yeah, well made. Except for a little too snugly made for me. So there we go. Those guys who only watch the first 5 or 7 minutes of video and then they go out and buy the knife, they don't realize that this knife has got a couple of minor issues. I'm still calling it a recommend, a good buy. Just be careful when you take it apart. Make sure that you clamp it, use 2 screwdrivers, and, pry it from the inside until, it pops loose. It's not a bad knife, and I really like it. The chamfering, I didn't talk about it, keeps the spine comfortable. That little bit of an angle helps it fit in the palm of the hand very well. I'm really, really liking this knife. And you can sometimes fix those marks in there. And I'm going to see if I can fix them so that they're not as, they don't stand out quite as much. Because that's a little obvious. Thankfully, it's not on the show side really, but still. I like the little things, this nice pivot collar. Really good screws, cuts well, nice belly on the blade, sharpness choil, lockup's good, alignment's good. Really like the pocket clip. Oh, I didn't show how well it looks going into the pocket, did I? Here we go. It looks like it doesn't want to go in there, but it does. Every single time it's gone right to the bottom, not too much sticking out of the pocket. And, that blue and denim, it blends together fairly well. And if you're a lanyard person, that's nice too. There's so many pros on this knife that I can't help but give it a good review. A little bit of jimping here makes it easy to disengage. I didn't talk about that. To disengage the lock, just put it in there and your thumb moves it over so easily. And I give this thing a definite recommend. Thanks for watching my video. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, friends, cut towards your chum, not your thumb.